Welcome everyone to our ISC21 HPC market update. Unfortunately, we can't do this face-to-face because we'd love to have you join us for our breakfast briefing. And for those of you who aren't familiar with us, Hyperion Research, we spun off of IDC a number of years ago. And here's our website, but also the sample projects, which I have circled in red here. We're posting a lot more things to the community. So please feel free to check that out from time to time. Here's the Hyperion research team. We added a number of folks about a year ago, and we're very pleased with that. We have a very comprehensive worldwide group and coverage at this time. You'll be hearing from most of us through today's presentation. And so with that, I'd like to start with the 2020 market results. And it was an amazing year, and not in a positive fashion. But the year actually turned out positive, and it was positive because the Fugaku machine, which was on the order of $1 billion, actually changed the market from being down 7 to 8% to being up just slightly. But as far as all HPC on-prem servers, 13.7 billion was how much was purchased last year. The supercomputer segment was just under 6 billion, with divisional around 3 billion, departmental just under 4 billion, and workgroup around 1.5 billion. Now, we expect to see with exascale machines and the price tag of the exascale machines, supercomputing segment will be growing the fastest. The workgroup segment, because of cloud computing, because of it being impacted more directly when we have issues like economic issues and the virus, we think will be under the most pressure in the years to come. So this is how the market compares from 2019 to 2020. As you can see here, the note about the Fugaku machine made the supercomputer segment very strong. And you can see the other segments had some difficulties, with departmental doing okay by itself, but the work group is the one that declined the most, and very substantially. And so the other thing we want to announce today with our meeting is we've decided to subdivide the supercomputer segment into 3 subsegments. Now, in our core data structures, we actually have 13 different price bands, but this is a new separation that we're going to be making public going forward. So the new bands are leadership or exascale class systems, then supercomputers, which are calling large versions that have a price tag of 3 million or higher, going right up to the edge of the leadership exascale machines, and then entry-level supercomputers, which are 500,000 US dollars to 3 million. And you can see here's our first separation of the supercomputer category in those 3 different segments. The reason we're doing this is a couple. One, the exascale leadership class machines are on a very different trajectory than the rest of the market. First of all, just the sheer size of the systems, the price tags, we're now talking over 300 million, many at 500 million, and one that actually hit $1 billion. But you can also see over the next 5 years, the growth trajectory is very different at 23% growth rate. So just substantial changes there. And so look forward in the future for seeing us splitting the market this way in a few more dimensions. Then looking at a regional view of the market, North America continues to be just under half the world market. Japan, of course, is very strong this year with the Fugaku machine coming on board. And here's how MEA, Asia Pacific without Japan and the rest of the world looks in 2020 compared to 2019. And then taking a look at the verticals, the application segments and sectors, we right now have 5 segments that are over $1 billion a year, and we have one at over $2 billion, and government labs has actually exceeded $3 billion. Now, of course, $1 billion alone was Fugaku, but we're expecting to see with the exascale machines coming on board, government lab will be the largest segment for quite a while now. And here's how the market divided by the different vendors as far as market share. HPE, along with its acquisition of Cray and SGI, continues to be the market leader at roughly 1/3 of the market. Dell is doing very well at around 21%, and you can see Fujitsu with the Fugaku machine almost hit 10% of the market last year. But this is how the different market shares split up in 2020. In the other category, we track around 35 to 40 different companies, and many of those companies are privately held or they want their data kept private, and that's why we lump them all together in one category. And here's the worldwide market by processors, as far as the number of processors sold. The market right now is purchasing roughly 4 million base processors, not counting the accelerators each year. And you can see x86 is the dominant processors. We are seeing some sizable growth though in ARM. And this chart also shows the number of nodes that are going in the system. And you can see as average across the whole market, we're really seeing 2 processor nodes as being the average version that's out there. Then looking at the broader on-prem market, where we look at the servers as what I just covered, storage, middleware application, software, and services, and that's repair services, and this is really add-on storage. You can see that that roughly doubles the market, and so the market almost reached $28 billion last year. So just tremendous impact there. And again, this is just the on-prem portion of the market. And with that, I'd like to change gears and present some results from a just completed end-user multi-client study. So in the past, every year and a half, we did this very large comprehensive study. Because the world is changing so much, we've changed to a yearly cycle on this. This represents over 140 sites and over 2,000 different systems. And it's very, random sampling of different segments. So it's meant to represent pretty much what's going on in the market. So I pulled a few charts out of the raw data set. So first of all, how long are the largest applications running? If you look at the largest applications on all the systems around the world, how much, how large are they in the sense of runtime? Their largeness can be number of processors, scaling, and other things, but this particular chart looks at runtime. And an amazing part is that roughly a third of the number one applications on systems are running for more than 24 hours. But you can see here the size of the jobs and runtime are just phenomenal. And this is very interesting in particular because all the systems keep getting larger as far as scaling larger. So if the scale of the systems are growing and runtime is this large, these are truly very large HPC jobs that are being run. The other question, and hopefully you can read this chart. If not, we'll send you a copy of all of our slides that we're presenting today. This one is on programming models. We're asked frequently, what are the top parallel programming models? What are really used, around the world? And, C, C++ is number one. Python has grown just tremendously. Python right now is number two. And then you have CUDA, MPI, OpenMP. And then one thing we're asked a lot too is, how much Fortran code is out there? So if you look at Fortran of all types, that still represents 47.5% of the programming models used at different sites. So, Fortran is very strong. But you can see the parallel programming models, there's a very broad set of programming models used today. And then this one right here is, the use of different types of AI, machine learning, deep learning approaches. And this particular question we have is, what are the categories of approaches you're using as far as AI? So as we've been reporting, machine learning is number one at roughly 70% of the sites that are using any form of AI in their HPC workloads. And then deep learning is at 61%. So deep learning is growing, although the amount of CPU hours is still much higher in the machine learning side. But then there's a number of other technologies, graph analytics, cognitive computing, semantic analysis, and then other big data types approaches. So you can see it's still a very broad mix there, with the machine learning, deep learning, of course, being the number one and two. And with that is just a little background. I'd like to talk about our HPC forecasts. So right now, looking out to 2024, we expect the market to grow roughly 6.8% for the on-prem portion of the market. That means that the server portion will get close to 19 billion by 2024. Of course, as I mentioned, exascale systems are driving that in a big way with the dollars. And then COVID is still expected to impact 2021. If you notice in our forecast here, 2020 barely was higher than 2019, but we're looking at a market that's basically a flat market for 3 years and then getting into the much heavier growth realm. And this is then splitting out our market forecast, into the categories: supercomputer, divisional, departmental, and work group. For the first time, we have a 5-year forecast, which really is in the negative category, and that's the work group. And we're doing a lot of studies and analysis of that work group sector. And this is a sector, and next we'll be talking about it later on, where cloud computing has had a major impact to a number of sites. And also it's a sector where when the economy goes bad, like the last 2 economic downturns, this sector gets hit the most because people simply spend more at the high end than the low end when the economy is bad. But they also keep their workgroup servers longer. So we're actually seeing a delay in replacements. In other words, the average life of the system's increasing. The size of the purchases look like they're going to be going downward. And a lot of that extra money then is going to be spent in the cloud at those sites. Now, here's an interesting forecast, because we rarely show forecasts that have these hockey sticks or major growth areas. But this is looking at all GPU accelerator types, including some of the custom AI processors and everything. Although this is heavily driven by NVIDIA GPUs. NVIDIA is clearly the market leader here. But because of the large exascale machines and our surveys of other sites, we expect to see just a tremendous growth in the on-prem GPU purchases and accelerators. Now, looking again beyond just the server portion, the add-on storage, middleware applications, and repair services, we expect that to create 2024 of around $38 billion for the total market. Again, not including spending in cloud, which we'll cover later. And we do expect the storage portion to grow again, a 1.5%, 2% faster than the rest of the market. We also, when we look at our numbers, we always have certain kind of like gut feelings or analyst opinions on which one may actually be higher than what we're showing. The storage one is the one that is, we call it a wild card. It could be much higher than this because of big data applications, AI, machine learning, deep learning. When we talk to a lot of different end users, researchers, and analysts, what they tell us is that they need much larger data in most cases, and they're not certain how they're going to run the problems yet. But once they figure out how they're going to actually apply machine learning, deep learning, and get access to larger data sets, that'll drive this like a massive spike in storage requirements. And we don't have not baked that in these numbers yet. And then Bob will be covering much more about exascale, but I have one chart here in the introduction just about where we're tracking the exascale systems. We still are tracking roughly 30 systems, and they have over $11 billion in value. And in this chart, it's showing the exascale and near exascale. And by near exascale, we mean machines that are close to an exascale, or the ones that are pre-exascale, meaning they're being purchased and installed on the path of creating an exascale system. And here are current estimates. And we welcome anybody who could give us better insights, ideas. If you know something that's wrong here or additional systems we missed, please let us know. We'd appreciate that. And if there's any questions, feel free to send questions here. And thank you for joining us today. Appreciate that.